want to go to Senator Bill Nelson, who is joining us. Senator Nelson, how concerned are you about cities like Naples, Fort Myers, and Tampa, which hasn't experienced a storm the level of a Cat 3, a direct hit, since 1921?
Very concerned. We talked about this yesterday, Anderson. The phenomenon of this hurricane is that a few days ago it was going to be an East Coast hurricane, and it's now shifted to the West Coast. And indeed, as it comes up that West Coast, the counterclockwise winds are going to drive the water up into the bays and estuaries. So you're in Tampa. That water is going to wall up in Tampa Bay because it has no outlet. The same thing south of you at Charlotte Harbor, just north of Punta Gorda. And Chad Myers was just explaining why the water is receding. It's receding because those counterclockwise winds at the north of the hurricane are moving it westward. But when the hurricane gets further north, then those winds reverse, and that's when the water comes back. And that's going to be a big problem of this storm.
Yeah, I mean, as some people have said, Tampa Bay essentially acts like a funnel, funneling water, into these inlets, into these rivers. And again, flooding, as you well know, Senator, in a place like Tampa, in Clearwater, in St. Petersburg, even in heavy rain, sometimes they have issues with flooding, and increasingly, and problems with getting that water out.
I just talked to Congresswoman Castor to go get her mother and stepfather and get them out of Bayshore Drive in Tampa, because all that water is going to come north in Tampa Bay, and then it's not going to have any place to go.
Yeah, I was just reading a quote from the mayor of Tampa, and I believe it was last year. He was down by City Hall in downtown, and he said, look, if a Cat 3 storm directly hits downtown Tampa, that area will be under 15 feet of water. Now, we don't know exactly what level of water the storm surge is going to be. The estimates as of yesterday were 5 to 8 feet for the Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater area. But again, that's 5 to 8 feet of water rise. Then depending on these winds, and we're talking hurricane force winds, you're going to have waves on top of that water. So it's not just, 5 feet of water, 8 feet of water. Maybe it doesn't sound so bad to people. That wind action creates waves of potentially very high waves.
And then you figure the tides. If it's at high tide, that all the more adds to the complication. But I think the people are prepared for it as much as they ever have been. A real shout out to the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service. They've been spot on with all of their tracking. They get all this stuff from the NOAA satellites. They get it from the G5. They get it from the plane that flies in the middle of the hurricane. They're really spot on.
Yeah, yesterday, Administrator Brock Long from FEMA was talking to our Renee Marsh, said there could be millions of people without power across Florida, potentially for weeks in some areas, given the elderly population in a lot of communities in Florida. That's got to be a big concern to you, not just the next 24 hours, but the next 24 days.
Exactly. This storm has covered up the whole state of Florida. Already you got 750,000 people in the Miami area without power. As the storm moves north over the entire state, you can imagine the amount of power outage. And that is the slow grind, the slow slog in the aftermath of the hurricane in the humid heat. That makes it very difficult to recover.
Yeah, in an area like Tampa, there may still be time to get to some local shelters. But again, the clock is ticking. That window is closing very, very fast. Let's say authorities. Senator Nelson, we'll continue to talk to you in the days ahead. I want to take a short break in our coverage.